Welcome to episode 677 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. Josh, it's been a month. It's been a month since we've done this together.
Yes, since we've done this together. It feels like a month since I've done it at all, but it hasn't quite been that long. Apologies already to anybody who's listening to this and going, what is going on with Josh's voice? I'm sorry, I'm still sick. I was sick last week. I don't know. I'm still not better, and I apologize for how it sounds, but that's also why we're not recording the show live this week, because if I have to pause to cough and stuff, nobody wants to deal with that on a live video stream.
Why we missed last week, too.
Exactly.
You definitely don't want to be hearing us when someone's sick. That's just not pretty.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You know what else isn't pretty? Having an empty inbox.
Oh, wow. That was a bit of a tortured transition there.
It might have been. So it would help me feel better in so many ways if we had some listener feedback to read on next week's episode. So to do that, you can email us at entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. But since there isn't any feedback, let's jump straight into the news. And the first story, literally days before this news broke, I was like, I bet I could watch Severance on my Android phone. And then I opened the Google Play Store and searched for it and was surprised to find that they still had not released an Apple TV app on Android.
Yeah.
Because I watch Apple TV on my Android TV box all the time.
Yeah.
And so they hadn't, but now they actually coincidentally rectified that problem. Apple has indeed released an Apple TV app for Android mobile devices, so phones and tablets, for the first time since Apple TV Plus launched back in 2017, 2018? I don't know, forever ago. It was in the before times. That's how long ago it was. And so I installed it tonight just to check it out. You, as we were talking before the show, Richard, you asked a very key question. Is it an Apple TV app or is it an Apple TV Plus app? Well,
yeah.
It is called Apple TV, okay? When you open it up, at the very top of the screen, in the top left-hand corner, is an icon that says Apple TV Plus. And when you look at the bottom navigation bar, your options are Apple TV Plus, MLS, downloads, and search. So, as you might expect, if you want to watch Severance on your Android phone, you can do that. If you want to watch MLS games through Apple's MLS subscription service, you can do that. And the app looks nice. I haven't actually tried watching a show yet because I just played with this tonight. I think it looks really nice. I had no issues with the login or anything like that. And if you are installing this for the first time and you've never been an Apple TV Plus subscriber before, you get a 7-day free trial when you log in. So
nice.
That doesn't work for me, but that's fine. And yeah, I logged in and it's got everything and it knows exactly where I was, exactly as you would expect, right? Like it knows that I'm watching Severance. It knows a couple of the other shows that I've watched recently. I can pick up right where I left off. It does all of the things that you would expect. And I expected that would be where this story ended. But as I was installing the app, I was surprised to see that in the Google Play Store, the average rating for this app is 2.7 stars on mobile devices.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I was like, how could it possibly be that bad? It's actually worse on TV devices, by the way. It's 1.6 stars. I can't understand how that's the case, but for some reason it is. And so I started digging into the reviews, and some of the bad ratings were around, apparently maybe the trial experience is a little janky. Okay. I don't know. I couldn't test that. The other thing that I saw comments about, though, also I can't confirm this for myself, is it is only able to play Apple TV Plus shows and MLS games That means that if you are an Apple TV user on other platforms, or just an Apple user in general on other platforms, and you have purchased movies or TV shows and things like that, you can't watch them on an Android device, according to the commenters. Now, I can't test this because I've never purchased any TV shows or movies from Apple before. But when I look at the navigation menu, that seems like it's probably true, because I don't see any places in the navigation that would even allow me to see my library of content.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess they're really positioning this more as a streaming service app as opposed to access to your library. Now, something I'm going to be a little bit pedantic, as a friend of mine recently pointed out that I can be, and remind you and anybody else that is thinking, well, then what's the point? If you don't have Apple TV Plus and you were really hoping to get to your Apple TV content, a lot of that content you purchased is going to be available on other streaming apps because of Movies Anywhere.
Right.
So this may not apply. Well, this won't apply to TV shows if you've bought TV show episodes, but it absolutely does apply to the majority of movies that you buy on the Apple TV movie purchasing service capability. Used to be called iTunes, even though it was movies. It's all very confusing, but it's not like you don't have other access to this. I honestly believe their intent is, let's just, like you said, get Severance on Android devices or other shows that are getting a lot of acclaim and a lot of attention right now. Let's get them out to as many people as possible.
Exactly. I think that is the point of this. I think the timing is probably largely actually based around the MLS season is starting soon, and they are the rights holder for the MLS subscription service. But the fact that we're right in the middle of a Severance season certainly doesn't hurt. So I think for most people, the fact that you can't watch other things from your library, maybe not the biggest deal ever. I think that if you have an Android phone, you probably haven't purchased that much video content in an Apple ecosystem anyway. Maybe I'm wrong,
right,
but I'm curious what the crossover is. What's the Venn diagram of people with Android phones and Macs or Apple TV devices connected to their TV? It's probably small. Like, there's probably not that much overlap. Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's possible that you might be a switcher. So you might have had content that you purchased in the past, and now you're an Android user and you want access to that content. I get that.
Yeah.
I think we were talking a little bit in the pre-show about whether this also mirrors the music experience. And I don't know. I don't know if the Apple Music app on Android allows you to play music that you had previously purchased on iTunes. Of course, on my iOS devices, I can do that. But does it include stuff that you've purchased and otherwise isn't available through streaming? Don't know the answer to that. And it could be that it doesn't, and they're following that model that they've already established.
Yeah. It's also possible that they were maybe kind of rushing to get this out for the MLS season, and that they're going to add that ability to do it later. But I'm really glad that you brought up Movies Anywhere, because if you're an Android user and you've purchased movies in iTunes or Apple TV or whatever they call it now, in all of those places, and you don't know about Movies Anywhere, then you should go to the website for Movies Anywhere. And it's a pretty simple process. You log in, like you create an account, and then you link that account with your Apple account, your Google account, your Microsoft account, your Disney account. And then you can use apps from all of those other providers and have access to your library of purchased movies. And so if you're an Android user, there's multiple apps. Like, you could download the Vudu app, but you can just do it in YouTube. Like, the YouTube app will give you access to your collection of purchased movies that are linked through movies anywhere, regardless of where you purchase them.
I mean, good luck navigating through them in YouTube, but that's a different story.
But they are there somewhere.
They are there.
Yes. All right. Well, let's stick with YouTube here, because YouTube had a big news brief recently and that really talked about some of their plans for the upcoming year. But I think maybe the biggest news out of that whole event was that they said that TV has passed mobile as the primary way people watch YouTube. People are watching YouTube on a television more than on phones, more than on computers. And that blew me away.
Yeah. Yeah. This is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, particularly given the pattern that we see of younger people preferring to watch any content of any length on a mobile device or watching television.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when I look at, let's go super anecdotal and just talk about my kids for a second. My 16-year-old is very much like how you're describing. Like, she will sit there on the couch watching Netflix on her iPhone. And I just, I don't understand it. But maybe it's more for privacy and, not having to share audio. Who knows? Whatever. My 12-year-old, on the other hand, she watches a ton of YouTube on the TV. Now, she also watches on her phone, but I bet she actually does watch more YouTube on the TV than she does on the phone. And then there's her geriatric dad, who probably still watches more of his YouTube content on his phone than on the television. I don't understand this world that we're living in anymore. Richard.
Interesting. Also, by the way, if you're geriatric, man, wow. So I think there's a couple things going on here, but one of the things, and I'm just going to say maybe something a little bit controversial. I think that this kind of is a sign that their big shorts experiment as a way of competing with platforms like TikTok and Instagram has failed. That if that's not where the eyeballs are, if that's not where they're getting most people watching most stuff, then I don't know why they're doing it, because it was my impression that that's what they were going for, that they were trying to get people. They were trying to get to people where they were.
Yeah. So I think that your statement here is more influenced by your hatred of YouTube Shorts than...
Oh, totally.
Because the data actually shows that people are watching lots of YouTube Shorts on televisions also. So...
and that's just awful. It's such an awful experience.
But
here, let me watch this video on a quarter of my widescreen television.
Right.
Oh.
Right. But it's the content. Like, I think that's what a lot of this comes down to is that YouTube is winning on television now because YouTube is where the content is that people are watching. I mean, I don't know if the YouTube numbers are higher than Netflix. Like, are more people watching YouTube than Netflix? I don't think
so. No.
Maybe,
yeah. Last that I saw in terms of numbers, and this is maybe 2 years ago, that Netflix was far ahead of everyone.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and now this will be harder for us to know because Netflix is no longer reporting those numbers. So we won't really know. But I think that's the bigger thing, is that a lot of, like, even me, I feel kind of weird about it, but even me, I do find myself choosing YouTube content for some things. Like, I am subscribing to channels and looking forward to the things that they put out. It feels a lot like podcasts to me, and it makes me wonder what it means for podcasts, especially podcasts that aren't really focusing on video for their content, because people are just going to YouTube for everything. And that does include podcast. But yeah, like, I'm watching videos from guys who work on cars and tech videos on computers and games and stuff like that. And none of these people have podcasts, but I'm eagerly awaiting notifications from the YouTube app that they have new content. Even if it's a short, I want to watch their YouTube shorts to see what it is that they're talking about right now.
Oh, you had me until that last clause there. Yeah. I mean, I except for the shorts, I completely agree with you. And how do you think I learned how to 3D print and laze stuff?
Right.
From YouTube. In fact, just today, I shared with a good friend of mine who's interested in getting into 3D printing a couple of the channels that I subscribe to so that I could learn 3D printing more. It's an amazing resource, and it doesn't surprise me that it gets the traffic that it does. It does surprise me that that's largely on a television now. It's fascinating, and I want to see where this goes. Where does this number go in the future? Is this a tell that we're seeing a trend, like maybe with your daughter, your younger daughter, that people will start watching stuff on television again, that we had a generation of folks who just weren't interested in?
Right. How much YouTube content do you watch on a television?
Oh, jeez. Well, almost all of it is on a television. I very rarely watch YouTube content on my phone, occasionally on my computer, but I really prefer to do it on the television, either in my workshop or at night after I've been watching some TV. I'll usually put on some YouTube. It is how I watch Saturday Night Live. I go and I watch the segments that I want to watch from Saturday Night Live. It is how I watch a lot of news. It is how I watch a lot of educational stuff. I easily consume easily an hour a day, if not more, of YouTube content on a television.
Wow. And for me, when it comes to like me choosing to watch YouTube content on a television, because sitting down on the couch while my daughter is watching some ridiculous Minecraft video, I wouldn't include in that. If I'm choosing to sit down on the couch and watch YouTube, it is typically shorter form stuff. Like I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to go and see what this channel has. I know they regularly have 10-ish minute videos. I'm not going to be here for an hour or two. Otherwise, I'm not opening YouTube. I'm probably opening Apple TV or Netflix or something.
Yeah. I mean, I aspire to only watch a few minutes, but I ultimately end up watching more. And that's what YouTube wants. And that's what they're so good at. I will say that a lot of the content that I watch, because it's instructional, is usually more in depth. And so a lot of it is around that 20-minute mark. Almost the length of a TV show.
Right. If I'm watching instructional stuff, it's probably car repair or home repair. And then it means I'm either watching it on my phone or my tablet because I'm out in the garage doing that thing.
Well, I feel like I'm still in, I'm less in, I need to know how to do this now mode, and more
Right.
in, I'm a sponge and I want to absorb everything I can about 3D printing and laser engraving.
Yeah, totally get that. All right, well, Richard, this next story it's got your name written all over it.
Well, it won't, let me tell you that. So yeah, we're a little late to this, but I think it's worth talking about anyway. You probably already heard the news by now that Sonos's latest new thing they're going to have this year is going to be a video device, because they've clearly perfected everything that you can do with audio. They've made it all work perfectly. They've demonstrated that they understand UI better than anyone else. And now they're ready to tackle the video world. Okay, so what are we talking about? For a while now, we've known about this project that's been going on in the background at Sonos called Pinewood. And Pinewood is a code name for an effort to do something on the television. I think it was like a year and a half ago that we first heard about this. And more details are coming out about it. It's not like Sonos is doing press conferences or anything, but there's more detail that people have learned now about this. We believe this is going to be an Android-based TV streaming box. It's going to be very, very, very small. And initially, folks thought it was going to cost around between maybe $150, $200, compete around that Apple TV space, maybe a little bit of a premium price because of what they were saying they were going to offer, or what rumors were that they were going to offer. Now the rumor is that it's going to cost between $200 and $400. And let me tell you, there's no way I'm spending $400 or a price close to $400 for a streaming box that is not offering really anything all that new. And I'll get to that in a minute. This is going to include the ability to, they say, work with a number of key providers. Well, the information about it indicates that it's going to include a number of key providers. So it's going to include stuff like Netflix and Max and stuff like that. So it'll be a curator, and you'll have a curated experience of your content. Sound familiar? Right. Oh, right. It's also what Google and Roku and Apple TV are already doing. Oh, it's also going to have an HDMI switch in it. Now it starts to sound a whole lot like a Cavo box. Remember Cavo? Really cool idea. Had a remote control, was an HDMI switcher, integrated all your content into one thing, cost like $300, something like that. They failed. They died, basically. I mean, technically, I think they still support the old box if you still have it. But eventually they realized the business model didn't work, and they tried to offer a service that people could pay for to get the data that supports the curation of content and all that sort of stuff. The other thing that I think is just hysterical is that supposedly they think they're going to be able to crack this UI better than anybody else has. They haven't been able to crack the music UI. I mean, of all the music apps that I have, and I think this is a pretty commonly felt belief, Sonos is among the worst. It just isn't a good experience. And their new version of their Sonos app that they came out with just last year is a classic demonstration of that. They completely bombed. So I am not at all excited about this. I think this is a foolhardy move. There's been some speculation amongst folks that this is very likely still left over from the Patrick Spence days. You know, the few products that come out after a leader leaves are likely products that started before they left. And what are you going to do? Just call it a sunk cost and throw it all out the door? Well, I mean, that is the concept of a sunk cost. But it's probably, they probably feel it's too far along now to do that, even if there are people who are dubious of this inside. And all of this amongst even more changes. Their chief marketing officer just left last week. So there's still turmoil going on at Sonos. I have zero interest and zero confidence in this. And let me be clear, I'm still a Sonos owner. I still like the Sonos ecosystem. I want Sonos to be better. I think it could be great. And I'm hoping that with new leadership, it will be great again. This just doesn't make sense to me. All right. I just ranted a lot. What do you have any thoughts on this? Because you're not really steeped in this system, and you already have an ecosystem where you get your content curated for you.
Yeah, I largely agree with you. I don't understand how this could possibly work, because you're talking about a device that's significantly more expensive than any of the competing devices. And they would say, well, there aren't any competing devices. But if, like you said, they're not great at software anyway, and that's easier software. Like music software sounds easier than video software. And the thing that we have been wanting the most from any of these video streaming platforms like Android TV and Roku and Amazon Fire and Apple TV is consolidation. And Apple does some of that, and Roku does some of that. Google doesn't really do it all that super well. None of them have Netflix.
Well, that's
in
Netflix's
what universe
fault.
do we think that Sonos is going to get Netflix?
Yeah, that is curious, right? Like, how is it that they're going to get Netflix involved? I mean, Google used to have Netflix almost fully integrated in the Google TV experience, and then Netflix kind of backed off that a little bit, and now you can get it in results, but it doesn't really show up in their curated content anymore. So, how they figure that they're going to get Netflix to play here when nobody else can, I don't. And this is going to be a much more difficult landscape to play in than dealing with contracts with the music streaming companies.
Right. Yeah. So, like, I don't want to crap all over this thing. We don't even know what it actually is, and maybe they have far more creative people who really do have a new product idea that is better and revolutionary and changes the way we use devices for consuming video content on our televisions. I just doubt it. Like I don't think that anybody is going to come up with any big new revolutionary way of doing it. And if I had to guess who it would be that could do it, Sonos wouldn't even be on the list. I'm sorry.
Right.
They make a really good distributed audio speaker system. They're not great at software. They've not really shown that they're good at anything else. And all of the missteps over the last few years have only decreased our confidence in their ability to do even the things that they once did well. So, and like you said, this started under the previous regime, and that makes me have even less confidence that this is going to be a good product.
Right. Yeah. So there's no real timing on this except sometime in 2025.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, that's a bold prediction. Okay.
Why would, is there anybody, have you heard anybody, even the biggest Sonos fanboy, say, yeah, I totally want this. I would absolutely give $400 for this.
No, I've heard absolutely no one say that. Funny story too. So the guys over at Home Tech FM were talking in their Slack channel about this, and someone said, "Oh no, they're going to have to design a remote." That's going to be a disaster. And Seth Johnson's response was, "Who are you kidding? Your phone's going to be the remote," which is even worse.
For sure. Right? For sure. Well, yeah, I'm going to stand by this. I don't think it sees the light of day. I guess I'm putting more confidence in new leadership to maybe take a second look at the things that came from previous leadership and analyze that maybe this isn't the right path and we need a different direction for this company.
Yeah, that would be a blog post that warranted the use of the word courageous when they talk about product decisions.
Indeed. All right, well, let's stick in the music ecosystem here with a quick update on Amazon Music Unlimited. Their price is going up. That's the story. Like, it really doesn't require much more than a couple of sentences of description. If you're not an Amazon Prime subscriber, it's going up to $11.99 a month, the same as Apple and Spotify. I have to imagine that most people who are Amazon Music Unlimited subscribers are also Amazon Prime subscribers. And if you are, you save a little bit of money off of that subscription. So you do save a little bit if you want to use Amazon Music and you're already a Prime subscriber. I don't know that there are massive other reasons to use Amazon Music other than maybe that slight discount, but there you go. The price is going up like everybody else.
Yay.
I think that's it. Yeah. So let's jump into the gaming news. The first story, we've now got well, and I shouldn't say we because I don't have any of these, but other press outlets have their hands on these new Nvidia GeForce 5000 series GPUs, and they've been putting them all to the test. And the reviews are basically what we expected. Like, the 5090 series is ridiculously powerful. It's also ridiculously expensive. And unless, like, your whole job is dependent on having a top-of-the-line GPU, you shouldn't spend $2,000 on a GTX 5090 card. Don't. So what about the 5080? What about the 5070? What about the 5070 Ti? Especially when they said the 5070 for $550 is going to give you the same performance as a 4090. That's what they said at CES. Well, unsurprisingly, because it's been true for the last few generations, the 5070/5070 Ti is probably the sweet spot for most people when it comes to balancing performance versus the cost. The problem here is that buying a GPU is basically impossible right now. And what's 100% impossible is buying them at the actual suggested retail price, because the market is nuts. So would a $550 5070 card be great? Sure. You can't buy them at $550 though. They're all being marked up by typically hundreds of dollars. And at that price, even the 5070 doesn't feel like it's actually in the sweet spot anymore of performance to value. So are they great? Yes. Are they as earth-shatteringly better as they proclaim them to be at the CES press conference? No, of course not. Like, it is still largely based on frame generation. It's not raw horsepower numbers that are making them so much better than previous generations. Buy a 50 series card if you've got like a 20 series or maybe a 30 series card and you're looking to upgrade. But if you've got a 40 series card, I don't understand why anybody would be trying to replace one of those right now. These don't seem like they're that much better, and you're going to pay out the nose to buy one right now because you're not going to get them at realistic MSRPs. And those MSRPs are still pretty stinking high.
They were already too high.
Right. Like paying $700 for a video card, I still have a really hard time justifying that, let alone the ludicrously expensive $2,000 5090. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. Well, one thing that I could have talked about in the last episode, but I kind of held off a little bit, and then we got even more news. What the heck is going on with Xbox? This is getting kind of weird. So the real piece of news that came out over the last couple of weeks is that they announced that Forza Horizon 5 is going to be available on PlayStation 5 consoles this spring. If you want to take one extreme, like the extremely nonchalant approach to this story, it's, yeah, who cares? Like, it's a four-ish year old game at this point. Last year, they released some old games on PlayStation also. And that's what they said. Like, popular games that are older, we're going to consider releasing those. But I don't think that's really what this is, because Phil Spencer's been doing the media rounds and continues to say there is no red line when it comes to what titles we're going to bring to other platforms, meaning primarily PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2. But it's got a lot of Xbox loyalists wondering what the future holds for Xbox. I kind of want to shut down a certain segment of that audience immediately. There are the people out there who are like, how could they do this to me? I have been an Xbox fan forever. How could they release Xbox games on another platform? This is treason. That doesn't make any friggin' sense, people. Like, who cares if a game that you loved is available on another platform? Like, it's actually kind of a good thing because it means the game producer is making more money which means they're probably going to be able to make more of the games that you liked. So it's a stupid opinion. And
but it's no longer special. And then you're no longer special.
Oh, sorry. You're not a snowflake. Sorry to break it to you. What this looks like, though, is Xbox is like, yeah, we're a massive video game publisher. And they are, obviously. They've had multi-platform games for far longer than the last couple of years. The big example that we always go back to is Minecraft. Minecraft has been on every platform for a decade. But if they really do start bringing everything to other platforms, and maybe crucially, if they start bringing everything to other platforms on day one, then is there any reason for Xbox to even be in the hardware game anymore? There would be some people, me included, who, we want Xbox hardware because the software is better. Sony's software just isn't great. It's not enjoyable to use a PlayStation. And you can absolutely make the case that it doesn't really matter because all that really matters is, are the games enjoyable? And yes, of course they are on PlayStation. And Forza Horizon 5 will be an enjoyable experience on a PlayStation 5. But it's not there's software that's fun to use or enjoyable to use, and there's software that isn't. See Sonos. And the Xbox software has pretty much always been a better experience, in my opinion, than the Sony software. But when the next generation comes around, will that be enough to sway me? I don't know that it would be, because what this looks like is a future where all games are available on PlayStation, and PlayStation games are only available on PlayStation and PC. The reality here actually is all games are available on PC, and all of these PC Master Race people who have been laughing for years, they're actually the winners here, except for the fact that they have to buy $2,000 GPUs to play their games. I might buy a PlayStation instead of an Xbox next generation. It would probably make more sense if all of the Xbox games are going to be on PlayStation day one, then and all of the PlayStation games are going to be on PlayStation, then it kind of just makes more sense to buy a PlayStation.
But aren't you also then jumping to the complete opposite end of that assumption wagon if you're saying, oh, well, day and date, everything is going to be on all the platforms? That's so far from what's happening right here.
It is. It absolutely is. But if they're going to go all in on being a multi-platform publisher, then why even have exclusivity windows?
Well, you and I have argued about how exclusive deals are bad for consumers.
They're bad for consumers. The only people they're good for are the platform holders. They're not even good for the game developers.
Right. Because it limits the audience for their game. Right. Yeah.
Even when they choose PlayStation, the numbers have come out recently that there are roughly 75 million PlayStation 5s have been sold, and that it's roughly 29 million Xbox Series consoles have sold. Let's look at Square Enix. They make the Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, PlayStation exclusives. Final Fantasy 16, PlayStation exclusive. Square Enix is saying, console exclusives aren't working for us anymore. We're not going to do that anymore. If releasing a Final Fantasy game on PlayStation as an exclusive isn't profitable enough, then platform exclusivity just doesn't make sense anymore. If Square Enix can't do it, no one is going to be able to make this work well. And so unless Xbox comes up with some really great hardware that differentiates itself in some meaningful way from PlayStation, then what's going to be the point? The only real point is Game Pass, because Game Pass, especially if you're paying for Game Pass Ultimate, you're getting all of those games day one for the cost of your subscription instead of paying $70 each for those games on the day they release. And while I think that Xbox may go all the way to the extreme of releasing the next Halo game day one on PlayStation. I don't think they're ever going to get Game Pass on PlayStation because I don't think Sony wants them to have it on PlayStation. And if that's the case, then maybe that's the biggest reason you buy Xbox hardware in the future. I can't, that maybe again, I'm not creative enough, like going back to that Sonos video device story. Maybe I'm just not creative enough to come up with a better reason why people should buy Xbox hardware in the future. But Game Pass seems to be the only reason. And maybe it's a good enough reason because what every company in the universe wants right now is subscription revenue. They want consistent, recurring revenue. And that's what Game Pass gives them better than anything else.
And this is true, I think, with both companies, although less so probably with Sony. These devices have always been loss leaders. The hardware in gaming does not make any money. It loses money. So that, add to that Microsoft has always made more money on software than on hardware, and now through services. So they very likely could see a path forward where even if Xbox hardware fails, as it's lagging now, even if the platform itself fails, the software and services platform is making them a ton of money.
Right. And their publishing arm, they're making money because they're selling Call of Duty on everything.
Now, it's a little bit ironic that the only reason they have all those publishing arms were to support the hardware that they had built and to gain an audience for said hardware. But,
Right. They were losing out on the console race because they didn't have the exclusives. So they went and bought 18 studios to make exclusives that now might not be exclusives.
Right.
But we all win. So I'm okay with that. Well, we'll see how this shapes out over the rest of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear an Xbox hardware announcement at some point this year. I just don't know what it's going to be. Whether it's going to be a brand new console that sits under your television, a portable device. I don't think we're quite ready for that. I don't think the hardware is there, despite the Switch 2. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be the year of some revolutionary handheld. So, all right. Well, that's it for our news this week. Richard, let's jump into what's been going on in our entertainment centers. And since it's been a month since you've been on the show, this is a longer list for you.
A lot. It's a long list. So first, let's talk about the entertainment center and the hardware and tools behind that. A big new movie came out on disc recently, and I still buy movies on discs. I know. I purchased Wicked on UHD or Blu-ray Ultra HD, and I was all excited. I wanted to back it up, put it on my server, and I went to go do that, and I was having all kinds of problems. I'm like, what is going on? Why am I always having these weird problems anymore when I try and back up a disc? So I ended up swapping out the USB cable. Maybe something's wrong with the USB cable. That didn't really seem to make a difference. So just on a whim, I then decided to plug my USB external 4K Blu-ray drive into a different USB socket on my Mac. And lo and behold, it works perfectly now. Like, how did that happen? Like, how does a USB port just go bad? I don't know what was up with that, but
especially a port that it's not like you've been plugging and unplugging the drive repeatedly. There's no wear and tear on this socket,
right? I mean, it makes no sense. I don't get it, but hey, I'm happy because now my disk drive is working better. So I got that backed up. Still haven't watched it. I want to watch it, but I'm the musical guy. Edward's not really into musicals at all, so I have to find a 2.5 hour window that I can sit down and watch that and watch it probably fairly loudly without
for sure
getting anyone too annoyed. I also have been talking about the problem I've had playing 4K videos on Plex for quite some time. And we mentioned that we didn't have feedback since the last time we had an episode, but we did have some feedback prior that suggested that I should try the Infuse app again because 4K videos played back really well on the Infuse app. So I used to subscribe to their service to be able to use the pro features in the app. And I decided, all right, I'll try it again. And so I just did a month to see, is this going to solve my problems? Reconnected to my Plex library, started playing a movie. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Well, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense to me. What if I played it through MB? Because I also still have the MB server running on my Synology. Why don't I play it through there? And perfect. Playback of 4K was perfect through the MB app on my Apple TV. No problems at all. Well, okay, so it's not Infuse. I don't need Infuse, although I'm not going to use MB because I still don't. Their indexing engine just does not work for me. So that's going to be more trouble than it's worth to try and set up. So I figured, all right, let me go back to Plex and really start poking around to figure out what's going on here. Well, at some point in time, I had tried to solve some problems, probably network traffic issues, by turning on a setting that allowed the server to dynamically change the bit rate to meet whatever I was able to stream. And I turned that off. The angels sung. And everything worked perfectly because I wasn't encoding anything.
Right.
I was just sending the stream right to my Apple TV. And suddenly everything works again in Plex. Crazy.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So that problem is solved. I have not renewed the Infuse monthly thing. Although it was nice to see the experience again. They do have a very nice experience. It's just not as robust as what Plex offers. So I went back to Plex, and we're familiar with Plex. So I didn't really want to rock that boat either. All right.
So I do have a recommendation for you.
Okay.
Because you're selfish, and that really only solves the problem for you. Because if I want to watch your 4K movies, your server does need to be able to compress them because it's not going to stream an uncompressed 4K Blu-ray to my house over the internet. I'm guessing, right?
So remember,
so what I need you to do, Richard, is to go buy a RTX 5090 GPU for $2,000, and then it'll be more than powerful enough to compress those movies for me.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw that somehow into my Synology. No, so you may remember it if you haven't messed with it in a while. You may not, because there's so many options in the Plex settings. But you may remember that there's different settings that you can use for in-network versus remote streaming. So I still have remote streaming set so that it is going to do some sort of some sort of encoding for that. Now, I don't know what the performance of that is going to be like, and I will have an opportunity to test that in the upcoming weeks because I will be down at our rental place again for a few weeks, and I'll see how the remote Plex experience is going. That honestly has not been very good for me for 4K stuff. And I don't know what your experience has been accessing 4K stuff from my server.
It hasn't been great, but it's been a long time since I've even tried.
Yeah.
And so I just stopped trying. But now maybe I need to try again. But I'm betting it's not going to work because nothing you did is going to change the external experience.
Right. Exactly. So I mean, the other thing, remember that Plex has the ability for you to pre-process kind of, for lack of a better term, downsampled versions of all the content that you have at very high bit rate and make it so that it's easier to stream on less capable devices or on a lower connection. So that's something that I could consider, because I did notice that all my Blu-ray stuff played fine. So it's really, it's getting over a certain bit rate that just causes it to start choking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the other thing is that you can always, I don't know if, I think it's true. I think I have my download capability set up, which allows you to, again, this isn't really doing anything like, oh, I'm ripping a copy, but you're downloading in-app, in Plex, constrained in the Plex app, a version remotely that you can then watch on your own time. That might be an option.
Yeah.
So that requires planning.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get on to content. I finally finished season 2 of Silo. That was so good. I can't wait till
it's really good.
The new season. I'm very excited about that. The new season 2 of The Night Agent, came out, and I binged that in like less than a week. It was great. I'm really looking forward to season 3, which they're already filming. So that was just, I think, just as good as the first season. Season 4 of Mythic Quest has started on Apple TV Plus, and it's great. I'm loving it. I know in seasons 2 and 3, a lot of people kind of lost steam, but this really is back to the things that made this show so good in the first season. The awkward relationships between people, the quirkiness of the different characters. So if you've been kind of off of Mythic Quest for a while, I'd recommend getting back and giving this a try. I have also been watching and keeping up to date with Abbott Elementary and Ghosts, a couple more episodes of The Bob Newhart Show, a couple more episodes of Welcome to Wrexham in season 3, because I still haven't finished that season. I think we just have a couple episodes left there. I don't know if you know this, Josh. Can you guess how many times there have been, I'm saying this wrong. Can you guess how many times ABC has tried to launch Extreme Makeover Home Edition?
Oh, man. 4? 5?
Okay, it's not that bad.
Okay.
So they're up to their third try.
Okay.
And this is pretty good. So in the old times with Ty Pennington and the original, everyone came to just call Extreme Home Makeover, that show was on for something like 8 years, I think. And it was very popular, but then just kind of fizzled out, and they were having trouble with sponsors, and it got really ad laden. And so they tried to reboot it a couple years ago while everybody was home watching TV. That didn't go over well. And they tried again. Now they have 2 people who used to do, they might even still do it, I don't know, a home organization show hosting it. So they're not builders. They're not Hollywood stars. They're just people who do home stuff. And it's actually really good because they're approaching the whole show differently. Yes, we build or renovate a home or property in a week's time, but the focus is less on all of that and more on how do we help someone who is living in this cluttered nightmare of their old home adapt to a new home that works for them. And it's really interesting. So we've been watching that. And I think the last episode of the season, this kills me. This is ABC, primetime ABC. And they ordered 8 episodes for the season.
What?
Right. So the final episode, episode 8, is coming out next week, and or this week, I think, and we'll end up watching that. For some reason, somehow Edward saw some clips on Facebook of 2 broke girls. And what caught his attention was a character that plays an actress, Jennifer Coolidge, that plays like a secondary part on the show. And we're both huge fans of Jennifer Coolidge. If you don't know her, she's been in a ton of stuff. She was in the Legally Blonde movies. She was in Best in Show. She was in the first 2 seasons of White Lotus. She's a very, very funny actress with a very distinct style and voice. And apparently she played a secondary role in Two Broke Girls, a TV series that ended like a decade ago, but we're now watching episodes of that, and it's surprisingly entertaining. So that's been on the list as well. I just mentioned White Lotus. Season 3 of White Lotus has started, and it is as deliciously awful as the first 2 seasons. Just there's so many reasons to dislike so many characters on this show. I think it's going to be very good, and I'm looking forward to it. We also intentionally went to watch, like every once in a while, we end up just happening on The Voice while it's on, as we're like flipping through stuff and we see, oh, The Voice is on. Let's just see if there's anything. And we've never really watched The Voice. Well, they're in the initial part of the season, the blind auditions part, where they have to like pick their teams. And we kind of came in the 3rd episode at the end, and we're like, let's go back and watch the season from the beginning. So now we're starting to watch this season 27, which is just mind-boggling to me, of The Voice. And we've always liked the stuff that we've seen. So, I'm glad we're actually sitting down and intentionally watching. It's kind of fun. I watched the first, the ultimate, the last, or the lowest rated and the last episode of The Good Place with Cord Killer's full experience. The Good Place is one of the things that they did. Josh, I know you loved this show.
Yes.
And when they started doing it for the full experience, I'm like, yes, this is a show that because of you, Josh, I started watching and I thoroughly enjoyed. But I also remember that the last season didn't really live up to as good as all of the rest of it was, but wanted to experience it the way that they do, which I think is pretty clever. And so I watched this with them, and I'm really glad I did. In fact, looking at the last episode now, I dislike it so much less than I did when it was the last episode after watching 4 years of it straight. So that was really interesting to watch. The one thing that caught my attention is that now, so Court Killers doesn't really do spoiler time anymore. This is the replacement for that. And they talk about spoilery stuff in their after show and stuff like that. But any of you who listen to the show probably know that Brian's really terrible at not doing spoilers. He'll do stuff like mid-sentence, and so spoiler, everyone dies. No, you can't just give me one word's notice
right.
that you're going to say something drastic about what happens. And I don't care if it's a 20-year-old thing. If people haven't seen it, you don't say stuff like that.
Right.
And it just kills me. Well, on the full experience, 1 episode in, they decided that they were going to start talking about the relevance of the first episode in relation to the way the actual show actually, to be redundant, grew and was told, how the story was told over the full length of the show. Well, that's interesting if you've watched it. But if you're doing the full experience, maybe because you want to see, do I want to watch it? Now you're spoiling the whole show for anyone that might be interested in it.
But that's kind of the weird thing about their full experience thing to me. Like I would never listen to the full experience for a show that I haven't watched that I might want to watch. Because by its very nature, as soon as you get to the second one, the ultimate, you're already going to know more things about the show.
Yeah.
Going in. Like that is going to be spoilery in some extent. And if you go all the way through and watch the last one or listen to the last episode, then it's for sure doing that. So I think the full experience can really only be consumed in a couple of ways. It's either you've already watched the whole show and this is a fun way to relive it. Like I listened to the full experience for Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Oh, and you didn't rewatch it? It was so good to rewatch those episodes.
I didn't rewatch it.
It was so good. I still had tears in the last episode.
Yeah. Or if you're like, well, that was a cool show, but I'm never actually going to watch all of it. If they did Lost, I've never watched Lost.
Yeah.
Like I would be kind of interested in it because everybody said it was so great. I'm not committing to 8 seasons of Lost. Would I commit to 4 episodes and do it along with the full experience? Maybe.
Yeah.
But if you actually
it was
watch
actually
all 8
only
seasons,
five or six.
Okay.
But,
well,
yeah.
however many. Then don't start by listening to these 4 episodes. That just seems like a bad idea.
That's a good point. Or maybe use this as your prompt to take a look at maybe the first and the ultimate, and from that decide, okay, do I now just want to go and watch the whole thing? Like not go any further. How, this is how they show it. This is how good it gets. Will that draw me in?
Right. Yeah, maybe.
All right. Anyway, movies, watched a bunch of movies, watched Deadpool and Wolverine. I loved that. I thought it was so much fun. Have you seen it?
Yes, I thought it was terrible.
Okay. Should have expected that. We watched Conclave. That was actually a recommendation from a friend of mine, and I thought it was fantastic. Have you seen that?
I don't even know what it is.
It is the story of trying to name a new pope.
Oh.
And
that makes sense.
It is so friggin' good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It has a great you know that there's gonna from the beginning that there's gonna be something that you're not expecting. And they have a couple really cool storytelling approaches in the movie that I didn't see from the beginning, and I loved it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I watched the Star Trek movie Section 31 to let everyone know that they don't have to.
Oh.
Every reviewer was right. It's awful. Michelle Yeoh even couldn't save it. And that's saying something because she's amazing.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
So I don't really recommend that unless, like me, you're a completionist and you don't want to leave any Star Trek behind. But it just wasn't good. It was obvious that this was something that had been on the cutting, that the concept had been worked and reworked. It was supposed to be a TV series. They turned it into a movie. It was just not good. The best movie that we watched during this whole thing was The Wild Robot. I don't remember if you've seen this, Josh.
No, I don't even remember what it is.
Wow. It is just, it's amazing is what it is. Such a good movie. Highly recommend it. It is a DreamWorks animation film, and it was absolutely wonderful. Good. It's a great family film. Highly recommend. Then somehow we found that Tubi has a whole bunch of cheesy old 50s sci-fi movies. So we decided to start watching some. And we started with a movie called The Monolith Monsters from 1957. And it's one of those classic 50s style black and white movies where the trailer is just so easy to mock because it's just so awful fake horror, and didn't really do a good job of explaining what the movie's really about anyway, like a lot of those trailers were at the time. And we thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fun. And then finally, we watched the last of the Pirates movies, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which I'd never seen. And it's actually a really good wrap up of the Pirates franchise of movies. If you hadn't seen it yet, I do recommend checking that out. We mentioned that I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube. And these days I've been watching a lot of smart home YouTube stuff because coming back from CES, I met all these YouTubers who do smart home stuff. So I've been checking out their channels and watching a lot of their new content. And then our latest version of, I don't know if you do this, Josh, maybe this is not something that everyone does, but we kind of occupy our Saturday and Sunday mornings while we're drinking coffee and there might be some music on, oftentimes just scrolling through Zillow. Oh, what's for sale in the area? And our new Zillow is home tour videos on YouTube for insanely expensive mansions. and I'm just amazed by how many insanely expensive mansions are being sold through YouTube videos. Quite a lot, it turns out. And then, of course, lots of news. Been watching that on both YouTube and on live TV. And as far as reading and audiobooks, so a couple books that I finished as I was traveling in this last month, an audiobook specifically from audio, more of an audio show across a couple of episodes from Audible called From Now. And it featured Richard Madden in the lead role. It was this immersive audio experience. And I think in the day, this was called binaural, where you listen to stuff in your headphones and it makes 360 sound around you somehow with normal stereo sound. And they use that to tell a sci-fi story that was really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I don't even know why I picked it, except that I've watched a bunch of stuff with Richard Madden and I thought, well, he's a good actor. Maybe he's a good audio actor too. And in fact, he was.
You mentioned Audible. Is that like an Audible exclusive or
it
does
is.
that just happen? Okay.
It is. It's an Audible exclusive. It doesn't even really have an author. It's created by some production house whose name I forget, like Q something. I can look it up so we can put it in the notes if we want to. I also read something that I've had in my queue for forever. And by read, I mean listened to a series of short stories by Andy Weir in a collection called The Egg and Other Stories. Have you read these?
No, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Each of them are like 10 minutes long. There is a gotcha at the end of every single one of them. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. The whole thing is maybe an hour and a half long. So this is a pick I would recommend if you're just looking for something short and enjoyable by an author that we know is pretty awesome because he wrote The Martian and what was the other one that they're making a movie out of now that was so friggin' amazing? Project Hail Mary.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. So recommend that. And then I'm still working through the Revenge of the Tipping Point, which is something that we're reading for work now. I'm really enjoying that. The production value of that is phenomenal. And the author of the book reads it and he's really, really good. Okay. Wow, that was long. That was like 20 minutes long of me, just more than that, probably rambling on about stuff. How about you? Do you have an equally long list? Because this is going to be a long show if you do.
It's longer than usual for me, but not nearly as long as yours. No.
Okay.
The gaming side is not super interesting. I've played a lot of Diablo and some NHL and stuff like that.
Shocker.
It will be more interesting though, because I've had this like niggle in the back of my brain. Josh, The Last of Us Season 2 is coming this spring. We didn't know when. We only knew April. And you haven't played part 2 of the game yet. You need to get on it.
Yes.
So I purchased that. It arrived today. I bought it physically. I hate playing games physically on PlayStation 4. The drive is so loud. It's slow. It's annoying. But
so why did you do that?
Because it was literally half the cost. Like I couldn't find it on set. Yeah, like I went on YouTube. I went on eBay and bought a used copy for $22 or something instead of paying $50 for it digitally from Sony. So,
and there's no such thing as like a digital copy matching?
No. No, they don't do that with games. Okay. Like I had kept trying to look to see if it was going to be on sale over Christmas and Black Friday and all of that, and I never saw it go on sale.
Well, yeah, because guess what? Everybody's going to want to be buying.
I know. So I just broke down and bought the physical copy. So I will start playing The Last of Us Part 2. I've really got to hurry up because it was announced today that show is launching on April 13th. So that is not very far away for me to get through this 20-ish hour game.
Day before my birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Last year, Taylor Swift gave me a new album for my birthday, and this year you're getting a new zombie TV show. Cool. So that's really it for gaming. I don't think I've seen any movies over the last couple of weeks. The rest of the family went to see Paddington in Peru on President's Day because they were all off. I was not. And when they told me they were going to see Paddington, I was not disappointed that I had to work that day. So, yeah, I have no interest in that movie. So,
wow.
Wasn't sad to miss that. TV, the Super Bowl. Richard, you and I haven't done a show together since the Super Bowl.
No.
I watched it on Tubi because they were doing 4K streaming.
Yep.
It was an almost flawless experience for me.
Wow.
Yeah. There was one point, maybe it was in the third quarter, where it did freak out and like the stream like crashed and I had to restart it. But other than that, like, you know, there wasn't tons of buffering. It wasn't like constantly changing the bit rate or anything like that. It was just solid and
nice.
Good.
Well, you know, I mentioned Tubi earlier, and, you know, one might have thought that the reason that we were poking around Tubi was because they were doing the streaming for the Super Bowl. But if you thought that, you haven't been listening.
Right. Richard does not watch the Super Bowl. Yeah. I'm completely up to date on Severance. No spoilers here, but I will say this season, it's not been as good.
Oh.
The most recent episode really kicked it up a lot. This one was a lot better. But it hasn't been like, and it's not bad. It's not bad, but it hasn't been nearly as good as season 1. But it looks like things are starting to go crazy again. So that'll be good. We also started watching a new show on Hulu called Paradise. And we didn't even realize that we were watching a brand new show until we sat down and were like, all right, we're going to watch a couple of episodes tonight. And there was only one available because it's actually, you know, it's one of these shows where they
just
release one episode a week. So
yeah,
it's a good show. I'm not going to say much about it because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's a little bit of a thriller. The main characters are like Secret Service agents protecting the president. And some pretty insane stuff happens. And that's all I'll say. We've been liking it a lot. I was looking for more things on Apple TV to watch on the treadmill. So I was like, you know what? I've had literally in these show notes that we're looking at right now for years that I should watch The Morning Show. Richard recommended The Morning Show to me. So I watched the first episode of The Morning Show one day on the treadmill, and it didn't do it for me.
Wow.
Yeah. It just...
I feel like, if I remember correctly, there's even a hook in that first episode where like, oh crap. No? There wasn't something... Wow.
I don't know. And like, I love Jennifer Aniston. Like, I am of the age that, you know, as a teenage dude, Jennifer Aniston was my celebrity crush, right? No, this show just didn't work for me. So probably won't go back to The Morning Show. So I was looking for more things, and so I Googled like best shows on Apple TV. And one of them that came up was a show called Constellation. And Apple TV has a bunch of sci-fi. And this is about an astronaut who was on the ISS, and some things happen, and now she's not on the ISS anymore, and there's weird stuff happening. And so I watched the first episode, and I really enjoyed it, and then I was talking to a friend about it, and we Googled it, and found out it got canceled after the first season.
That's why I haven't heard about it.
Right. So I probably won't finish the season because what's the point?
That's frustrating.
Yes, because it seemed good, but there's other things. So
yeah. So again, back to my recommendations, even though my first wasn't very good. What about For All Mankind? We talked about this whole space fiction history thing.
I should go back to that one. I had watched at least the first episode of that once, and I don't remember why I didn't. I think I just was, fell into a mood where I just wasn't watching much TV. But I've still got a lot of treadmill running to do over the next couple of months, and so maybe I'll try For All Mankind next, because it is right up my alley.
And there's a lot there.
Yeah. And there's 2 or 3 or even more seasons of that.
There's 4 seasons of it at least. I don't remember if it's done or if there's more.
Okay. And then on books, I've got another nerdy nonfiction book that I'm reading through. It's called The Engineering Leader by a British woman named Kate Houston. That's CateHuston. It's been good. It's long for a technical leadership book. It's a 14-hour audiobook, but I have been enjoying it a lot. And she's got a little bit of her British humor in there that can be fun at times too. So some good content and a little bit of humor. If you're a software engineering leader or want to be one, I would also recommend this book so far.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's it for all of our content this week. If you want to get a hold of us, we're all over the place. All of our contact information is in the show notes over at thedigitalmediazone.com with links to everything that we talked about. You can find us on, frankly, you can find me on Blue Sky, Josh Pollard. You can find Richard. He is on Blue Sky, richardgunther.com, but he's more likely to be on Mastodon at Richard Gunther over there. And I'm
trying to split my time more. Okay. I am trying.
Okay. Maybe you just need to find an app that'll post to both.
Yeah, but I need to be able to interact with both too. And that's the trick. So, yeah.
We are, me, I'm still on X or Twitter or whatever. And so is the website, Josh Pollard and DigiMediaZone. I don't know how much longer. Did I uninstall the app? I haven't uninstalled the app yet, but God, I hit Twitter it's so bad. So
I thought it was an official government website now. No.
Yeah, it'll probably be I won't be able to uninstall it, but pretty soon, probably. Richard, you have another show that you do, and you have a new episode of it.
Well, yeah, I guess I had talked about this and then hadn't been on this show since it had come out. So yeah, we have a new episode of Home On. I did an interview episode where we interspersed interviews from the CES pre-shows with conversation between Jimmy Hawkins and me about the things that we thought were interesting in all of these kind of secondary events that occur while CES is happening. So it's an interesting way of looking at CES, a little bit of a different perspective than usual. And it was a lot of fun and great to actually record with Jimmy.
Yeah, for sure. It was a very enjoyable episode. So you can find that over at thedigitalmediazone.com also. And maybe by next week, things will be normal-ish in our lives and we'll be back to doing this show live, probably Wednesday night around 8:30 p.m. Eastern, because that's going to do it for episode 677. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.